Every week, college football games hinge on a single word.
Touchdown. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Touchdown. Touchdown. Touchdown, Wisconsin. Touchdown. 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 Touchdown, Stanford. Touchdown. Touchdown, Alabama. Touchdown, Notre Dame. Touchdown. Wow.
This is Touchdown Radio. Here's Gino Torretta and Taylor Zarzour.
And it's good to be with you here for the Week 12 edition of Touchdown Radio Tailgate. Gino and Taylor. Gino, we are going to get to the rankings. There's a few of them that are head-scratching to me, way more than last week, that I've got to ask you about, which includes your alma mater. We've got to get to that discussion here in just a little bit. But before we do that, let's reflect back on Week 11, because we had a number of games that were sort of raised your eyebrows, and you tell me which is the first one we need to discuss. Number 4, and these are last week's rankings. Number 4, Miami loses to Georgia Tech in Atlanta, 28-23. Number 3, Georgia gets whipped by number 16, Ole Miss, 28-10 in Oxford. There were some unhappy Zarzours in attendance, evidently. Number 8, Indiana beats Michigan, but it goes to the wire. Michigan had a chance to win the game late, but the Hoosiers are 10-0. Army still undefeated, the only group of 5 team undefeated. They beat North Texas 14-3. Colorado's in control of their own destiny to get to the college football playoff. We'll explain. They beat Texas Tech. Alabama absolutely embarrassed LSU 42-13. It was 42-6 late in the fourth quarter. Who saw that coming? And the holy war was controversial. The Utah athletic director did an impromptu press conference after the game, ripping the officiating after BYU beat Utah 22-21. Where would you like to start?
I would just say, why not? You know what? If that's what you saw with your own eyes and you feel the officiating was, it's not hard with replays and HD and 4K and watching it.
My favorite part is with the next day when they, you know what, emotions got the best of me. I'm sorry. Like that always, I wish that didn't happen. I wish people would just say, you know what, I stand by me being crazy after the game and being upset instead of the like apologetic press release.
Do you think there was that was part of the fine? If you don't apologize, the fine's going to be bigger. If you apologize, here's what the fine is going to be. I don't really have a problem. You know, when he says, "Hey, this is we didn't like the calls. We thought the game was taken from us." You know, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. You know, but I think the officiating has struggled this year. I don't think any conference that if you watch certain games, you're like, God, that seems like a big call that didn't go my way or went my way. But yeah, I think, you know, obviously out of those games, I would say the Alabama LSU game.
Wow.
To be on the road.
Yeah.
And to perform like that, and we know that LSU is one of the hardest places, most loudest places to play in the country. Forget just the Southeastern Conference, and for them to go out and just dominate. And I think that as we get down, and you know, I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, listen, there's going to be a team with 2 losses for sure in this top 12. There's maybe a team with 3 losses in this top 12, depending how the rest of the season goes. It shows to me Kalen DeBoer had his team as focused as he could, and I think that is critical with the transfer portal and things like that. These teams, yes, they're dominant and their front lines are dominant. They don't have the depth that they used to have because there's too many players that are deciding, hey, you know what? I don't want to be the backup here. I want to go somewhere else and start. Hell, there's even starters that are just like, maybe there's a bigger paycheck here. I mean,
no question.
Just doing the Texas game, Isaiah Bond. You know, you start doing research of these players. It's like, wait a sec. This guy led Alabama in receptions last year and then transferred.
Yeah,
I mean that is just like, wow, okay, I'm playing for the Dolphins. I don't really like the Dolphins. I'd rather go catch balls with Matt Stafford. I want to go there. And that's what's happening. And because of that, you're not seeing the too deep depth that some of those teams have enjoyed.
I don't appreciate the shot at the Dolphins. You always take shots at my Miami Dolphins. The
I'm here. I'm in Miami. I'm not taking a shot.
Well, you know what? Let me just mention this. The Miami Dolphins are the only team from the state of Florida that won a football game over the weekend. So you have to take one on the chin for the rest of Florida because your team lost. My team finally won a game. So I get to take some enjoyment out of that. And Stafford didn't throw any touchdown passes, by the way, on Monday night. But going back to your point, I'll give you a good one. Antoine Juice Wells played for South Carolina last year. Well, I say played. He played in like a couple of games and was unavailable for the Gamecocks all year and then got paid by Ole Miss at the end of the season, scored a touchdown against Georgia this past weekend in helping Ole Miss beat Georgia. And you're just thinking, wow, this guy couldn't get on the field. And there was a lot of Gamecocks who were wondering why he couldn't get on the field last year, and now he's catching touchdown passes for Ole Miss the following season. It is a crazy time in college football.
Yeah, so that's obviously critical as these coaches try to navigate the end of the season. The Miami Georgia Tech game.
Yeah,
I would just say after watching that game. Now you and I saw Georgia Tech do the exact same game plan against Florida State.
Exactly.
And it was like, okay, hey, we're not sure if our roster's better than them, but if we can just play 4-minute offense from the start and deflate the ball and have long drives, they're not going to have enough opportunities.
I thought Paul Johnson was calling the plays.
Oh, my
Saturday.
God.
Yeah.
But how does Coach Kidry, the defensive coordinator for Miami, he tells television they're going to attack our edges. He basically gives them the game plan, and don't you sit there and watch and you're going, well, he knew that was their weakness and that was where Georgia Tech was going to attack. How do they keep accomplishing that goal? Yeah. And Miami didn't stop it. I mean, it was head scratching to me that defensively they didn't either make an adjustment or you watch some plays and you can tell some people in the front were jumping out of gaps to try to make a play because of misdirection and their eyes were lying to them of where the ball was going, and then they would break it. But yeah, I thought, I'm like, man, did Paul Johnson come back here and scheme?
Coach Key had Johnson in his headset.
Scheme with Coach Key and Chris Wanke and design the ultimate option offense against Miami. So
Georgia Tech they are world beaters is what they are in the Coach Key era. And I'd be terrified if I'm the Georgia Bulldogs in a few weeks because Georgia Tech's Super Bowl is coming up in Athens. And they've already done this a couple of times this year. But that certainly makes the list. The way Georgia played, Georgia's inability to protect their quarterback and Carson Beck's struggles that continue on, that was shocking. I mean, you consider the fact that this team totally embarrassed Ole Miss, scored just about every time they touched the football last year in Athens. And this year they get 10 points, 7 of which come on a gift at the beginning of the game after an Ole Miss turnover deep in Georgia territory, and to basically do nothing offensively the rest of the game. And Georgia's offensive line can't protect its quarterback against Ole Miss, who has a very significantly improved defense. But still, that was shocking to watch. Ole Miss push Georgia around the way they did this past weekend.
And that's something that, listen, I've been complaining about. Guy, I love shotgun when you use it, but these teams are 100% in shotgun. And I know this: if I'm facing a defensive end that was 220 pounds, and it looks like he runs a 4.3, he's going to run past every tackle that is out there in edge. You get under center and you take a 3-step drop, and you know what happens? He wears out. He runs out of gas. But when you sit in shotgun, and let's say you're still trying to throw a quick game, you can't throw it as quick as if you get under center, just take a 3-step and throw it. It gives him a target. I mean, it's like, here, you're going from point A to point B, son, and we know you're faster than anybody you're going to face on the field. And they were coming off the edge and hitting Beck. You don't have time to sit there. And there's enough times that you've heard me. I'm like, just get under center and throw a hitch. They don't throw a hitch anymore. They don't throw a 6-yard out.
I don't think they teach a hitch anymore.
No, because you can't throw it from the shotgun. So you know what they replaced it with?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they teach under center, and I don't think they teach a hitch. I don't think they teach all parts of it.
And it drives me crazy because a 6-yard hitch is like stealing from the defense. They're going to give it to you, take it.
And it's a great first down play, too.
But you know what they replaced it with?
First down play.
That annoying motion across the formation bubble screen where guys are blocking before as the ball's in the air, and you're just like, really? Do we have to watch this every game of every offense? That smoke screen behind the line of scrimmage? Please just line up. You know they're off. They're afraid of your speed. Throw a hitch.
You don't
and
see
let
much
your guy
of that
break
anymore.
a tackle.
I will say this, given the way that college football has transitioned in recent years, and Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, still Cam Ward at Miami, Ashton Genty at Boise State, those guys deserve to be at the top of the Heisman list. But to me, the most dangerous player in all of college football is Jalen Milroe if Alabama's going to have that kind of game plan. Because they basically took Jalen Milroe's arm away from him on Saturday night. And the Alabama coaching staff said, Jalen Milroe's legs will determine whether we win or lose tonight. And nobody can stop him. He's one of the fastest players in all of college football. The knock on Milroe has been he's been inconsistent throwing the football the last couple of years. He has all the ability in the world at times, and then he makes some decisions that are head-scratching and turns the ball over. They said, we're not doing that. We're going to let his legs determine whether he wins. He apologized to Ryan Williams after the game because he's like, I didn't get you the ball enough. And Ryan said, we won 42-13. I don't care how many times I got the ball. But if Alabama is going to use Milroe's legs first, a la Lamar Jackson at Louisville, Alabama can beat anybody.
Well, and how much of that is a tip of the cap to Kalen DeBoer and the coaching staff? Because 100%. you got to remember, he watched, at Washington, a quarterback operate with utter efficiency, which was more throwing the ball downfield. He was a great passer downfield. So that you get into, I would think as a coach, you get into an opportunity or you get used to watching something. You're like, oh, our offense works like this.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's the guy pulling the trigger that makes it look so easy. And then you go to Milroe, who has a different skill set. And I think it's taken some time to really get used to that, because you're like, well, this is how we run our offense. This is how it operates. This is how it's been successful. But like you said, is you got to realize the 11 you trot out there, what do they do the best? And, oh, by the way, your quarterback is Milroe, and he's not the best deep thrower. He is more of, like you said, a run-first throw and can be inconsistent at times throwing the ball.
Coach Sheridan, the coordinator, and Coach DeBoer deserve a lot of credit. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where the entire offensive staff left the booth and came down to the field while the game was still going on to celebrate. And they just, they didn't need any coaches in the booth anymore when you're up.
Well, apparently the fans were a little upset at the LSU coaches did as well.
Yeah. And Coach Kelly was upset because second-string Alabama defenders were still pressuring his first team late in the game. Never imagined that that's what would happen. There was a live tiger there as well on Saturday night. What an atmosphere, but in good commentary from you on what happened in those games. Now the rankings. In the next segment, we're going to get to them. There's some of these rankings that I just completely disagree with, and I need your help, Gino, in figuring all of this out. We'll discuss it next on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. All right, Gino, let's get right to it. No surprise, Oregon is number 1 in the College Football Playoff Committee's top 25 here for Week 12. They deserve that. They're 10-0. Ohio State is number 2. I don't think that you're going to get many people arguing about the Buckeyes being number 2. Texas is number 3 in the rankings. Penn State is number 4. Indiana vaults up to number 5 in the rankings. BYU after winning a 1-point game at then 4-4 Utah, goes from number 9 to number 6. Tennessee is at number 7. Notre Dame is at number 8. Miami is at number 9. Alabama is at 10 after the win against LSU. Ole Miss moves up from number 16 to number 11 after the win against Georgia. Georgia goes from number 3 to number 12 in the rankings. A 9-spot fall for the Dogs. And Boise State, who was number 12 in the rankings last week, is now number 13. SMU is 14, Texas A&M 15. Colorado was down at number 17. The Army Black Knights moved from 25 to 24. They're 9-0 in the rankings. So those are some of the notables in the top 25. Now, that's just the top 25. As you see, we'll go through the seedings here and how that would work out in just a second. But what was your reaction? Did you have any reaction when you saw the rankings come out?
Well, you mentioned Georgia dropping 9 off going on the road to Ole Miss. I got to be honest, Miami only dropping 5, losing to a 4-loss team.
Yeah,
on the road. I thought there was going to be the ranking. Miami's ranking was going to look similar more to the AP, where the Miami dropped to 12. Mm-hmm. I really did. You lose to a 4-loss team, and you get hit. I think that for Georgia, probably the playoff committee wanted to rank Georgia higher, but they realized they just lost to Ole Miss. So wherever they kind of settled with where Ole Miss was, they were going to put Georgia right behind them. But, I think that there's enough football left. I'd probably question Penn State at 4, being there with one loss. I think some of these teams, they all have kind of warts that are, you're like, okay, is the other team going to expose that weakness this week or not? Is Penn State going to figure out how to score a touchdown inside the 5 this week or not? And so I think that, listen, college football this season has been great every single week, and for whatever reason, and I think it's going to continue, and I think that this is not going to be, what the top 12 looks like. But again, I think it solidifies you better win the ACC to get in that playoff.
Listen, I don't want to hear, I'm sure I will hear, but I'm not going to react to anybody saying, oh, this guy's an SEC homer. That's a lazy take. And you are, I think in many cases, people are trying to get clicks, and they're trying to make money off of taking one side instead of really believing that. Because I'm going to say what I'm about to say. And if people say, well, you're an SEC homer, you have SEC colored glasses, again, that's a lazy take. And the biggest reason it's a lazy take is because I believe the Big Ten's Oregon Ducks deserve to be ranked number 1. And I believe the Big Ten's Ohio State Buckeyes deserve to be ranked 2nd. Okay, so let's remember that as I go through what I'm about to say. I have 2 Big Ten teams at number 1 and 2 in the country. And if I had to predict who I thought would win the national championship right now, I'd pick one of those 2 teams to win the national championship. So please remember me saying that before I'm about to say this. Can you tell me who Texas, what big win does Texas have this year? I know you just saw them beat the 3rd-string quarterbacked Florida Gators this past week, but who has Texas beaten? Does Texas have some significant...
Does Vandy consider it as a big win? They did beat Vandy.
Okay.
They beat Michigan when they were top 10. Now that was week 2, and that was
Michigan's
just kind of
5-5 now.
That was a fraudulent ranking off that.
No, you look at where those teams are now. What big victory does Texas have? Now let me ask. Okay, you can't find it. Let me ask you this next one. What big victory does Penn State have? You watch them in the Coliseum.
USC on the road, but obviously USC's kind of falling apart. They have 4 losses. No, listen, I get it, and that's where you would think that this would come out in the reckoning if as we continue on.
But I just don't understand it. Like, Texas does not have a top 25 victory. Penn State does not have a top 25 victory. I would actually put Tennessee ahead of Texas and Penn State. Tennessee beat Alabama.
Yeah.
Tennessee has a really good win. They beat Alabama. Now, they only have one, but that's one more than Texas and Penn State have. And then I would put Indiana underneath Tennessee, Texas, Penn State in Indiana. I would then put BYU. But then the fact that Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia are all ranked behind Notre Dame and Miami, I for the life of me don't understand that. I realize that Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia all have 2 losses. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, who's 6-4, but they also lost to Tennessee, who's one of the top teams in the country. Ole Miss's 2 losses are good, certainly would qualify as good losses, and Georgia's 2 losses would qualify as good losses. Who's Notre Dame beaten? Notre Dame beat Louisville. Okay. Louisville, in my opinion, is overranked, but they're ranked 19th in the country. That's it. They don't have any other big wins. Notre Dame has by far the worst loss of any team that is in the top 12 right now to a NIU team that now has 4 losses on the season. NIU is battling for bowl eligibility right now after suffering a number of MAC conference losses. Notre Dame gets to be ranked ahead of those teams? That doesn't make any sense. And you just went through Miami. Now, Miami, to me, deserves to be ranked as the 4th conference seed right now. So it doesn't really matter if they're number 9 or they're number 11 or 12. I would put Miami ahead of Boise State. So Miami would be the 4 seed right now. But why on earth does Miami deserve to be ranked ahead of Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss?
Well, they're not in the AP. That's why I think you're thinking more along the lines. And I think what I would think what should happen, I'm not sure if it will with the CFP rankings at the end of the year. When you go through this exercise, mm-hmm. if I'm one of the people saying, okay, here's where the rankings should be, I would look at the end of the season. Okay, here are the schedules these teams played.
Yeah.
This is who they beat. This is who they didn't beat. Do we really think, in whatever team you like or dislike, do we really think this team, Team A, if they played Team B's schedule, what mm-hmm. would their record be?
Yes.
And that's what it should come down to. Like,
it should come down to.
You know what? That team, there's no way because you have to look at, I mean, the schedules in the ACC are really weak this year. You know, let's be honest, they are. You know, when you're scratching to get Louisville's in the top 20, you know, Clemson's got 2 losses in 20. You're like, they got worked by Georgia at the start of the season. I'm not really sure. So hopefully they do that. That's why I don't know if they want all this to come out and that doesn't happen. But I think if your eyes don't deceive you where you're like looking, you're like, you know what, this team, you know, listen, Georgia's one of the best teams if they can get it going offensively and all their defense is healthy. There's not a doubt in the world.
There's no question, but they certainly deserve to fall a number of spots after the loss to Ole Miss. I mean, that's especially since they lost by 18 points. I realize Ole Miss is one of the better teams in college football, but sure, if you had them number 3, they deserve to be like number 10 right now. Number 12 seems excessive, which is where they are, but no, they deserve to fall significantly in the rankings. Greg McElroy said it when they revealed this on ESPN the other night, our friend and my former colleague on this channel. He said there's a lot of football-minded guys in that room. I think there's 7 or 8 on the committee, one of those numbers, 7 or 8, that played the game that are on that committee. And they're, as Greg said, they're using the eye test maybe more than they're using the resume to determine where these teams should be ranked. And respectfully, if the football-minded people think that Texas and Penn State should be ranked 3rd and 4th in the country despite not having a top 25 victory, then I would yield the floor to those people because they played the game and they're watching these games each week. personally, I don't watch Texas and Penn State and say, man, these teams are unequivocally better than Tennessee or Alabama or Ole Miss or Notre Dame or Indiana. I have not seen that level of play from them consistently, especially Penn State throughout the season. But if the football-minded people, Gino, if you were in that room and you said, I'm sorry, man, I just saw and you did, I just saw the Texas Longhorns, that's one of the 3 best teams in college football, then I would respect your opinion.
Well, I would say this. Me watching Texas against Florida,
right?
Florida, their roster wasn't even remotely close to as good as Texas. The one thing that I could not believe, Texas couldn't run the ball. They could not line up and just run ISO off tackle like obviously Ricky Williams and Earl Campbell and guys won Heisman trophies running the ball at Texas, and Texas could not do that. And that's where normally when you face a team you're better than, you're just going to control the line of scrimmage and just, run it down their throat. They were designing plays. Now, Sark's one of the best offensive minds out there. And, man, he had some plays designed where he got hat on a hat, and it was just off to the races. His skill players were running down the field. It was awesome watching that. But to me, it's more of, can we just line up and beat somebody? And not just that's not just for Texas's case. It's if it's first and goal at the 3 and you can't score, you don't deserve to win. You know what?
It's a good point.
That's the way we thought it in Miami. If it's 4th and 1 and we can't get a yard, you know what? We're not the best team in the country. That's the way we felt.
Yeah.
And I think that, there are situations. I mean, if Indiana had Michigan's logo on the side of its helmet,
there's no question
Indiana would be number 2. There's
question.
Not a doubt in the world.
And to me, Notre Dame is number 8 because of the fact that their helmets are gold.
Right.
I really believe that. And it's not listen, if Notre Dame had a typical schedule where their opponents, like we never thought Notre Dame would be playing a Florida State team that had no interest in being in South Bend this past week and that would only have 1 win on the season. It's not their fault that their opponents have struggled this season. But if Notre Dame's schedule was what it typically is, I'd have no problem putting Notre Dame at the top of the rankings. But Notre Dame is number 8 in the standings because their helmets are gold. If their helmets had an I and a U on them, then, at 8-1 with the same schedule, they'd be like 19th in the country right now.
And Taylor, we're going to continue to get this in this new playoff world unless we go to some kind of scheduling model that you have SEC playing a couple Big Ten teams, ACC playing SEC, and you have it because we should not go through a season where the teams, let's say this season in the Atlantic Coast Conference, make the conference championship game, and their one tough game is the conference championship game. I'm not a fan of that. I want to see great games. And with those great games, you see how teams perform in pressure situations, on the road, and in big environments. And then I think you'd have an easier time of saying, you know what, I'm okay with, Miami lost by a point, on the road to Georgia. Well, you know what? They lost, but I'm okay with where they're at based on that.
I agree with that. I think if
you
we
have
that
more
kind of
touch
schedule,
points.
Yeah, we do. And look, Notre Dame does have not only the Louisville win, they have that Texas A&M win at the start of the season, and I would have them in the top 10 or 11. That Northern Illinois loss, that should be a huge punishment for that loss because it's the worst loss of any team that's in the top 12 or 13. Very quickly before we break, I just want people to know this. Oregon would be the 1 seed. Texas would be the 2. BYU would be the 3. Miami would be the 4. Those 4 teams would get byes into the quarterfinals. Ohio State would play Boise State in Columbus. You would have Penn State hosting Ole Miss in Happy Valley. That'd be fun. Indiana would host Alabama in Bloomington. They might have to move that game to Indianapolis. Tennessee would host Notre Dame on Rocky Top. My goodness. Those would be fun matchups.
Can we buy future tickets? Can we buy future tickets for that one? That will be a hard ticket. That'll be a hard ticket to get.
Fun first round games, no question about it. And this will change each week. I'm going to pressure Gino into giving me some answers on how the rest of the season is going to take shape coming up next on Touchdown Radio. Gino, I'm going to put you on the spot here in the final 3 weeks of the regular season, and then, of course, conference championship week as well. I expect Oregon and Ohio State to win the rest of their games, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong there. Oregon plays at Wisconsin. They host Washington. Ohio State is at Northwestern, host Indiana, host Michigan. I think Oregon will play Ohio State for the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. Who wins the rematch? The Ducks or the Buckeyes?
Wow. You know what? I think Oregon's better than they were when they barely beat Ohio State. I got to be honest. I really do. I think they're better. I think as Gabriel gets more games in their offense and more reps in the offense, I think their offense is better. Ohio State, I don't know. There was something kind of missing, at least, that what I thought that playing Penn State, I thought they won, but I thought they could have played a little bit better in that game. Yeah. I'd take Oregon. I would take Oregon. My only reservation there is in Indianapolis, it's going to be 90% Buckeye fans.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something that's said when you go to you go to the Sugar Bowl and it's SEC fans and they're going to be behind the 8 ball there, so it's going to be tough for the road team.
All right, you give a little advantage to Oregon there. And by the way, if you're Penn State or Indiana and you finish at 11-1 in this exercise, that's not so bad that you don't have to play in that game, because chances are both of those teams would make the college football playoff, and deservedly so. I don't know that they deserve to be I don't know that Penn State deserves to be ranked where they're ranked right now. I don't have a problem with Indiana's ranking. But both of those teams with one loss, in my opinion, deserve to be in the playoff. Now, let's go to the Atlantic Coast Conference. Somehow, Miami still controls its own destiny. They don't play this week. They play Wake Forest and at Syracuse in their final 2 games. If they win those games, they are going to the ACC championship game here in Charlotte, North Carolina. The SMU Mustangs play Boston College at Virginia and Cal. If SMU wins all of those games, it'll be Miami versus SMU. Do you think they're going to get there, first of all? Do you think those are the 2 teams that are in Charlotte?
I would think. I mean, but I also thought that Miami was going to beat Georgia Tech. I mean, so I would think that that's going to be the ACC matchup.
But, of course, Virginia just beat Pitt at Pitt. So
that's where I think that, it's something where during a season when you lose one game, like and Saban's your coach, it's like, man, the refocus comes at that point in time. Yep. And you'd like to think that there's refocus for Miami to where, hey, you know what? Cam and our offense can pull us out, but defensively we have to play better. It's just you hold your breath when you watch Miami because of the defense gives up a lot of points.
Clemson, Louisville, Pitt, they still have a chance if SMU and or Miami slip up. But if it's in Miami and SMU, I would take Miami. Who would you take right now to win that game?
Well, I think I'd take Miami, but I would still not I would be concerned about that game because and I would say this, because Rhett is a offensive mind. Mm-hmm. And I think he's going to have a lot of tape of what hurts Miami defensively.
Yeah.
And, listen, they have talent at SMU.
Rhett Lashley, you're talking about the head coach there at SMU. In the Big 12, are you taking the BYU Cougars? They play Kansas at Arizona State, and they finish the season against Houston. I think BYU is going to slip up in one of those games, personally. You look at some other teams that are in that conference. Colorado has Utah at Kansas, Oklahoma State. Coach Prime's team is rolling. Arizona State at K-State, BYU at Arizona. That's tough. Iowa State still in there, even though now they have 2 losses. Cincinnati at Utah, K-State. West Virginia somehow is still in the race. Baylor, UCF at Texas Tech is how they finish the season. I think BYU's going to lose a game, Gino.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think Colorado could run through these last three. I think it's going to be BYU versus Colorado to get to the college football playoff. And I think I'd pick Colorado right now to get Coach Prime's team, I think, has a real chance to make the playoff.
Well, Colorado's defense has improved tremendously. They've been protecting Shador better when he has time to find the guys downfield. He's dangerous with his arm. I would agree. I think how Colorado's playing is just so much better than they were, at the start of the year, and that's what you want. You want a team to continually get better every week, and they seem hungry. Man, you can say what you want. They're having fun when they're playing, and they're hungry when they go out there to win.
Hard to know, like, if Colorado would be a 3 seed and Miami a 4, or the opposite of that. Chances are Miami would be a 3 in this exercise, go to the Peach. Colorado would be a 4 going to the Fiesta. Now, and you just mentioned slightly giving an advantage to Oregon over Ohio State. They would be the 1 going to the Rose. Here's the hardest question. Who's going to win the Southeastern Conference? And by the way, there are 5, 6, 7 teams that could all be tied with 2 losses. And it's going to come down to a strength of competition tiebreaker that's like number 4 or 5 in the SEC tiebreaking procedure. And it looks like Alabama might have an advantage there among all those tied teams. But Texas only has 1 loss. So does Texas A&M, but they play each other at the end of the season. I guess it's pretty simple. Who do you think is going to win the Southeastern Conference?
Ask me next week. I mean, Tennessee plays Georgia. I think, isn't that going to be the determining factor? How's Georgia favored by 10 in this game? I'm going to say I don't know. I don't know, because I think that when we watch these games, sometimes
they all beat each other up.
Well, it's not necessarily that. It's when you think the team has shown you who they are, what they can do, and then they have a poor performance, and you're like, I don't know about this one. I don't know if they're going to get through the season. Yeah. So I don't know. I obviously I think Tennessee's got they have the lead, but this game this week, and Georgia's already got 2 losses. All these kids are saying, "Hey, man, it's like Ole Miss said, it's like a playoff game every week for us," and you can bet they've been in the playoffs before. They've seen this.
This is tough. It's really tough. I think Ole Miss might have the highest ceiling of any of these teams, but they lost to Kentucky. They blew the LSU game. That has to matter. That has to factor in when you're.
What if Dart gets banged up? Then you're like,
oh man,
that's you're holding your breath. The quarterback gets banged up. He got banged up last week. They somehow are able to pull it out. I mean, he's kind of the engine that makes it go. That's the thing, is like, as we get through this, it's why these college CFP rankings. I mean, like we try to say it they don't matter the first time they come out.
Yeah,
and as we go through
let
this,
play through it. Yeah.
But like I think we've already made the point, is we hope at the end of the year that the resumes and the schedules that teams played factor heavily into who we really think are the top 12 teams in the country.
Well, that being the case, again, Georgia, who's had the toughest schedule, is not in the college football playoff as we sit here today, and those other teams that we referenced are. I still think Boise State's in the driver's seat, by the way, for the group of 5 representation over Army or Louisiana or Tulane or anyone else. Of course, if Boise runs the table, they will be. And it'll be interesting to see if, in fact, they are the 12 seed, or if Boise runs the table and wins these next 4 games, will Boise be the 10 seed or the 11 seed? Will they not be in that 12th spot? Will Boise for sure be the worst conference champion seed? Or is there a chance that Boise could be ranked ahead of, say, a Colorado or an SMU or a Miami at the end of the season, and one of those other teams would be the 12 seed instead of Boise? Those are a few things to think about as we go through this. Fascinating how this is going to play out. And there's no question that this new format has created a lot of new juice for the end of the college football season. The rest of the season is going to be so much fun to follow. Gino had a great week picking games last week. Well, he had a much better week than I did. How about that? So
that was just because I was forced to take the other side.
You've cut into the lead, and the lead is down to 9.
Oh, single digits.
Single digits as we get ready for some picks coming up next on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. Okay, Gino, let's make some picks. Let's start with the Texas Longhorns, ranked 3rd in the country at Arkansas. Noon kick on ABC.
And Touchdown Radio.
Oh, you're there. Okay.
I'll take the Longhorns. I'll take the Longhorns and an early trip home back to Miami.
Are you going to Herman's?
Of course. And
Okay,
I have Chef Nick's private cell phone number. So he said, call him for the reservations. So
we love Herman's prime rib. Amazing. All right. I'm taking the Horns as well. The Clemson Tigers are ranked 20th at suddenly the struggling Pitt Panthers. Noon kick on ESPN. I'll take Clemson on the road.
I'm going to take Pitt just to be different than you. I got to make up. I got to make up 9 games. I'm going to take Pitt.
The number 25 ranked Tulane Green Wave are at Navy. A noon kick on ESPN2. I love the Armed Forces, but I'm taking the Wave on the road.
See, you know what? You put Notre Dame games and Service Academy games always because you know I take opposite Notre Dame and I always take the Service Academy. So I'm continuing on, even if I get a loss. I'm taking the Naval Academy.
Number 22, LSU is at Florida, 3:30 kick on ABC. Is there any chance DJ Lagway plays in this game?
Listen, I pulled hamstrings and never enough to get an MRI, so I got to think that's a very significant injury. They say he practiced last week. He was the emergency quarterback. I don't think they trot him out there. I think LSU bounces back.
Yeah, I gotta go there as well. Number 14, SMU against the Boston College Eagles, 3:30 start on ESPN. I'll take SMU at home in Dallas against Coach O'Brien's club.
I would agree. I think that's going to be close, though. I think O'Brien is great coach. I think they'll make that close.
The Mayor's Cup, Columbia, Missouri against Columbia, South Carolina. Number 23, Mizzou at number 21, South Carolina, 4:15 on SEC Network. Called this game the last few years. Coach Beamer's excited that I'm not calling it because his team never wins when I call it. Who do you got, Coach Drinkwitz or Coach Beamer?
South Carolina started my turnaround. I'm riding them. I'm thinking South Carolina at home.
I agree.
Although I wish it was at 7:15 or 7:30.
Yeah,
for extra preparation.
I do think that certainly the injury at quarterback for Mizzou is a huge factor in this. Brady Cook has been banged up, didn't play last week against OU. Drew Pine did. I know Cook will try to play, but I think the Gamecocks, gosh, that defense is amazing. Number 1, Oregon is at Wisconsin, 7:30 start on NBC. Ducks win in Madison. I'm done picking Aria Torretta's team.
We thank you for the support because I think I picked the other way. But, yeah, Oregon goes on the road. I think Oregon, obviously, they're going to get through it undefeated.
Hope Aria has a great time jumping around, though, at the game. Number 13, Boise State.
By the way, that's the fastest exit in college football, the student exit after the jump around.
Oh, yeah?
Games.
Oh, man, that's what they stay for. Number 13, Boise State at San Jose State, 7 o'clock CBS Sports Network. San Jose State 6-3. This is one of the Broncos' more challenging games in the Mountain West.
I think Boise State.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I was just trying to sell the game there.
I got you.
Yeah, seeing maybe if you would jump on it. Let's go next to
my mom's alma mater, the San Jose State Spartans.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Number 16, Kansas State against Arizona State, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Who you got?
You know what? To be different, because I know who you're going to pick, I'm going to take Arizona State on the road.
Wow. All right. I'll take K-State. You're right. I'm going to take the boys from the Little Apple. And finally, the Tennessee Volunteers are ranked 7th in the country at number 12, Georgia, 7:30 on ABC. I know that you were surprised by the line because it's basically a double-digit line, right around 10 points. I think that's because of Nico Iamaleava and the concussion he sustained last week in Tennessee's victory over Mississippi State. I would think he would play in the game. If he doesn't, then Georgia could name their score in this game. But regardless, I think the Dogs are, after a After a big week of practice with Kirby Smart in their ear, I think the Dogs jump on the Vols.
I'm going to take Tennessee.
Wow.
With an asterisk. Obviously we want it full speed, but I'm going to take Tennessee, and that would be the kiss of the playoff for Georgia.
Yeah, that's it for the Dogs. Are done if they lose this one to the Vols.
Not so fast, my friend.
On Saturday
night.
Not
so fast, my friend.
That's Gino Torretta. I'm Taylor Zarzour. We love you listening to Touchdown Radio Tailgate. We hope you enjoy Week 12. Have fun in Fayetteville, G. We'll talk to you next week here on SiriusXM Channel 84.